Okay, we want to welcome our general public and the community to our conversation with the primary candidates for the upcoming election for the Democratic nominee for mayor of the city of Hartford. As has often been said, the winner of the primary is oftentimes going to wind up being the mayor of the city of Hartford. So we have extended an invitation to our candidates to join us this morning for conversations. And so this is a regular meeting of the Greater Hartford African American Alliance, and we meet every Saturday morning from 10 o'clock a.m. until 12 o'clock noon. And at noon, we have an open, off the record discussion that can go on for quite some time. But this Saturday, we decided to suspend our regular rules and invite the three candidates that are running for mayor. We're going to give each of them about 25 minutes or so to take questions from our membership. And we thank them for taking time out of their schedule to join us. So with that, our first guest is Senator John Fonfara, and we will welcome him to our meeting. Good morning, Senator Fonfara, and thank you for joining us.
Good morning, Stan, and good morning to all your viewers, listeners. I'm grateful for the opportunity to have a conversation with you and all those tuning in and listening today. I'm grateful for the opportunity.
All right. Thank you very much. You can have as much time as you would like for an opening statement, and then we'll go directly to questions from the membership.
Great. So, born and raised in Hartford, grew up in Rice Heights Housing Project until I was 15 years old. Lived in the South End all my life. Continued to, as I said, a lifelong resident of the city. Went to local schools, Moylan, McDonough, and Bulkley High, a bulldog, as people remind me at the doors. And I've been representing Hartford for the better part of my adult life in the legislature. I spent 10 years in the House of Representatives and now 26 years in the Senate. I chair the Finance Committee, which has afforded me the opportunity to do, I hope, as most would agree, a lot of things for the city in terms of bringing dollars home and changing policies for the betterment of the city. I'm certainly grateful to my constituents who have supported me in that effort. And I've decided after all these years to run for mayor, not for glory, not for attention. I don't need that. I've never sought it. That's not going to change about me, although I will have to be far more social than I've been, in that the job of mayor demands more, many more meetings, or not meetings, but events than maybe as a state senator, although I have plenty of those myself. But I'm running because I see too many of our neighborhoods of Hartford declining, continuing to decline, poverty increasing, and in some neighborhoods where poverty is intense. And I see that city government continues to operate almost, not entirely, but almost the same as it did 30, 40 years ago. Today, we manage the symptoms that the city faces. And if I asked your viewers to name 3 or 4 or 5, I think it'd be pretty much the same, which is blight, crime, gun violence, disinvestment in communities, high taxes, roads that are not maintained well. Those are all symptoms of our poverty. And city government is focused on those and managing those as best it can. But until we address the root cause of those symptoms, which is the fact that so many of our neighborhoods are now at a level of concentrated poverty, which isn't just a place where a lot of poor people live. Concentrated poverty generates more poverty. If you grow up in a high poverty neighborhood, your chances in terms of your income in life being lower are greater. On average, your chances of being incarcerated are greater. Frankly, your lifespan on average is lower. And we're not focused on that. And if I'm mayor of Hartford, I will. And I'm sure there'll be questions about this, and I look forward to answering them. But I'll give you the 3 ways in which I intend to focus. Now, we will have to continue to do the things that local government does, but we will focus in a major way to reduce poverty. And the 3 legs to the stool that I intend to focus on, one is our education system, not solely the school system. I think we've been wrong for a long time, and I know this is the case, that every town in Connecticut, they turn the education of our children over to the school system. But there's 5 full years of a child's life, the most important years in terms of preparing them for the workforce, for college, for career, for opportunities to earn a decent wage, to go to own a home if they so choose, and do all of that in Hartford, not having to move to the suburbs to benefit from the higher income that they now are earning. And so I'll have an office of education at City Hall, and the job of that office will be to work to have eventually every child in preschool, every child entering kindergarten ready. These are things we're not doing right now in Hartford. There are some neighborhoods where the percentages are very low. Every 3rd grader reading, tutoring throughout each. There's so many people in Hartford, seniors that we saw yesterday, who have skills that can help our young people. We don't have to reach out further, although there are people in the suburbs that would love to come to the city and help as well. But tutoring, so young people see opportunities in terms of their education and their future, which we are denying too many of our children. And a small percentage, sadly, turn to what they see as available to them, whether it's entering a gang or carrying a gun or being on the other end of the gun. We can do better as a city. We have to skill up our workforce. There are millions and millions of dollars that are available, but we're not focused on young people believing that they can benefit from those dollars, from that investment. And lastly, investing in neighborhoods. So people begin to do better. They don't feel like they have to go to Bloomfield or Windsor or West Hartford or Wethersfield or East Hartford or Manchester. We export success stories from Hartford every day. And I want to reverse that, so people feel like their children can go to the school in the neighborhood. And I'll get into that aspect later, I hope, that they can own a home or have an apartment in a neighborhood that they can walk. They can send their kids to the park. I hear this at the doors. I hear this at forums, that the quality of life of our city is declining and people want better. I'll stop there. I thank you for this opportunity.
Okay. Members, the floor is open. If you have questions, please raise your hand and I'll take them in the order that you would like to ask them. For those joining us, our guest is Senator John Fonfara, who is a candidate for mayor in the city of Hartford, who is challenging the party endorsed candidate. Attorney Cynthia Jennings, you have the floor.
Good morning, Senator Fonfara. This is Cynthia Jennings, and I have one question for you. And I'd like to know, what is your history, your personal history of making change in Hartford around all the issues that you just discussed? What have you personally done? Why is North Hartford in such bad shape compared to the rest of the city? And what is it that you've worked on personally that will change what's going to happen in North Hartford?
Thank you, Attorney Jennings. Appreciate the question. And I appreciate all the work that you have done and continue to do on behalf of the residents, not just of the North End, but of Hartford in general. I have spent my adult life and my career fighting to bring resources back. I'll name some of them shortly, but I'll say that even though I represent 65% of the city roughly, my work doesn't end at the border of my district. Most recently, I secured funding to bring 2 walk-in manufacturing facilities, not in East Hartford or in some other town, but right here on Park Street and Albany Avenue. The Park Street facility is open. The Albany Avenue, I think, is going to be open next week. And that will allow young people or people of any age to walk in. They don't have to get on a bus. They don't have to drive. They don't have to figure out how to find a place in some suburban town, but right in their neighborhood to be introduced to manufacturing. But I got additional dollars this session to expand that to where it's a clearinghouse. So we have multiple opportunities for job training. So you might go in there for manufacturing, but you might find that's not for you. But there are other aspects like the program that Senator McCrory and I started with Eversource to increase the number of Black and Latino linemen. There are so few Black and Latino linemen working for Eversource. And we went to work on that after Tropical Storm Isaias came through. And Senator McCrory said to me, John, when the linemen came through to repair put the power back on, none of them looked like us. So I said, well, let's go to work. And I found a apprenticeship program in New Hampshire that Eversource has at a community college. I went to Eversource, said, I want that here. Today we have that at Capital Community with CEO Duncan Harris, and he's working hard to recruit young people into that program. That's $100,000 plus a year. Now, I wouldn't want to be up on a pole. Many of us watching and listening today probably wouldn't, but there are people who will, and we need a more diverse workforce at the state's largest utility. That's just another example. But the clearinghouse is to provide maybe 15, 20 different types of jobs that would be available for training. But we have to recognize that there are people in our community that may not feel that these opportunities are available to them or that they would qualify. Duncan Harris has said to me, John, we go to recruit people for the program in barbershops and other places, and it's hard. And I've concluded from that we need that middle step of supporting, encouraging folks to see that they too can benefit. It isn't just somebody else that benefits from these programs. This past 2 years ago, I got funding to establish community development corporations because I see that there needs to be an organizational structure where the community takes ownership of its future. Too many poor neighborhoods, in most poor neighborhoods, the majority of the properties are owned by someone who doesn't live there. You don't see that in middle income or upper income communities. The vast majority, if not all the properties, are owned by people who live there. We can change that with the Community Development Corporation. There's $100 million available, Cynthia, for the Clay Hill area, which I represent, Northeast, Upper Albany. And there is, for the first time, a structure underway to create a legal entity to form a community development corporation in Clay Hill, in Clay Arsenal now, which I hope will spread to other parts of Hartford where poverty is the greatest. And then this past session, I passed the first of its kind in the state, resources to focus solely on the poorest census tracts of our state. Hartford has 20 such census tracts, and those 20 do not get the attention that they deserve and the people that live in there. The funding is $50 million a year for 6 years. It's by application. And by the way, the neighborhoods where the greatest amount of gun violence is happening just happens to be where those neighborhoods are the poorest. And unless we're prepared, and I will as mayor, focus like a laser in those neighborhoods, not to the exclusion of every other part of Hartford, until our neighborhoods and the residents who live in those neighborhoods are feeling good about where they live. Downtown's important, but we can't have a city where you're downtown and 2 blocks away, there's such a difference in terms of the investment, in terms of the opportunities. And I want Albany Avenue to be a destination for residents of Hartford, for suburbanites to come in and spend their money here, dine at an African-American, a Jamaican, West Indian restaurant, sit down, feel good about walking the avenue. Until we have a city like that, we are not the city that we could be. I want folks to walk Park Street, dine on Spanish cuisine, shop in the stores. There are millions of dollars in our suburbs and our own residents that want to do that. But until we focus on it, Cynthia, there's going to be millions of dollars spent on moving downtown south where the Bushnell is. And I say we cannot end there. There's millions of dollars, as you know, for the north downtown area. I want that to extend down Albany Avenue, and where people can live in our city, not feel they have to leave our city when they start to do better. We have to grow incomes, and I've done this with investments that I've made. The Police Athletic League building, Doug McCrory and I worked together on that. Got $7 million to renovate the building. They do great work for our young, particularly in the North End. Just got them another $1 million, along with Hartford's Community Care. Each got $1 million over the next 2 years to focus on 8 to 12-year-olds. That's the group. If we can get to that group of young people when they're transitioning from adolescence to young adulthood, and there's a gap in funding for those folks, if we can focus on those, they're not at risk yet, but there's some obvious conditions that suggest they could be. I said to the chief of police a year and a half ago when he told me about the list of 17 to 25-year-olds that are gangbanging and involved in gun violence, I said, Chief, there's a 10-year-old walking around Hartford today that will be on your list in 5 to 7 years. What are we doing as a city? Not you as the police chief, but what are we doing as a city to give that young person opportunities? There are Black and Latino boys and girls that ride their bicycles past the Etna, the Travelers, the Hartford every day, and they don't ever think that those jobs in there belong to them. We've never created pipelines in this city for our residents to work in these places. And I'm not talking about sweeping floors. We have factories in Hartford. They're called Hartford Hospital, St. Francis Hospital, the Connecticut Children's. And very few of our residents have jobs in those. If you grow up in a small town in West Virginia, you're probably going to work in a coal mine. Those places are our coal mines in Hartford. But no mayor, no city government has ever sought to build those pipelines. So if you're growing up in Hartford, unless you choose otherwise, you have opportunities to work, make a good wage, live in Hartford, spend your money here. That's not what City Hall does today. That's not what the mayor does today. And that's the only, I'm not running for glory. I'm not running for attention. I could stay in the Senate. But I see our neighborhoods in Hartford declining, too many of them. And even the ones that aren't are experiencing some of the spillover, some of the effects. I hear that, and I'm door knocking in Blue Hills. I hear that in other parts of Hartford. And I've gone to work as a senator. The only reason why that I know I can do more as a mayor than I've been able to as a senator. But if people think I've done a good job as senator, I could do even more because the tools of that office afford one more than what the state Senate does.
Okay. Want to remind everyone that we have 4 people, hands raised. I'll take you in the order that you came. We have until you have like 10 minutes left to answer 4 questions.
I'll be brief, Stan. I'm sorry.
That's quite all right. Colin, you have the floor, followed by Christopher.
Good morning, Mr. Fonfara. My name is Colin Dawkins. Coming from the state where this is about construction. The state does not care about Black and brown contractors and not making rules for that. And for a mayor like Luke that came in that had a corrupt guy from like Casca Diamante from the state that passed on a letter to the city of Hartford about Hartford-based business not getting preference. Will you be trying to change that, or will you still be working under Luke's rules?
Oh, I won't be working on any other rules than ones that are working. But I'll say this session, because I have been speaking to folks from Minority Construction Council. I have been having conversations with legislators. We, for too long, have been talking about how to provide opportunities for minority, Black and Latino owners of businesses, employees of businesses. I don't know if we're serious about it, Colin. I'm a results-oriented guy, and we can talk about these things. We can have meetings about these things. I even proposed a bill this year that it candidly, for whatever reason, it ticked off the one of the building trades because I said I wanted to create an environment where and a policy in our state where if the state is investing in projects that we would see joint venturing. If you're going to build a school, because Doug McCrory talks to me all the time, there's not one Black GC building a school in Connecticut. And I said, let's do something about that. And I put a bill forward to require that if you're going to build a school as a white contractor or whatever, that you're going to be joint venture with a Black or other minority contractor so that they can learn. So ultimately, in 5 years or whatever many years it takes, there will be Black, Latino, and other minorities, qualifying minority contractors, GCing jobs, like the millions of dollars every year. We spend more money, Colin, on building schools in Connecticut, the state does, than any other state in the country. We are an outlier in that regard, but we're not serious about having Black contractors get the skills, employ other workers that they can someday own a business. And until we, and that bill, it did not pass, Colin. It did not pass because of the resistance of some, but also because what I learned in this is that we don't have that an intermediate step that it requires to skill up folks to be able to do the work. The business, the folks who work in businesses, we need to build that bench. We don't have a program to build the bench so that someone who's working in the field and is predominantly white, not owners aren't predominantly white, but even the next level down. If I use a sports analogy, the assistant coaches, the wide receiver coach, or the third base coach, and I'm just using as an analogy that though it's like why the lawyers who become judges, lawyers. If there are more Black and Latino lawyers, there'll be more Black and Latino judges. We're not filling that bench, and until we're serious about it and require that when we're making decisions on hiring or who wins a bid, that those are the conditions. I will do that.
So if you become mayor, not to cut you off, so because I know you have time. So if you become mayor in the city of Hartford, will you be following having the ordinance being overseen properly, and that the contractors, like even right now, Hartford Hospital is building over $100 million project in the city of Hartford where they don't pay no taxes, and there's no requirement for Hartford-based contractors. So will you be making sure that the ordinance stay in place and that everybody's following the ordinance? That's all we want to know as contractor.
Absolutely, the ordinance will stay in place. I've spoken to a number of your colleagues in the field about this, and even at the state level, where some of the previous policies under previous governors may not be enforced. But my relationships in the legislature don't end if I'm not there, and I will absolutely use the power. The mayor's office has enormous leverage, and it's all about leverage. When you have leverage and you use it, you can get a lot more done. It all depends on what are your priorities. But I want more contractors to stay. Colin, I just need this to be said. I know a lot of the contractors don't live in Hartford, and we have to do better to create the environment so that you guys stay in the city, spend your money here, hire here, and we can grow wealth in this city. And the avenue that you're in, the field that you're in, is a critical part of it. There are a lot of, quickly, I'll just say, there are a lot of homes in the north end of Hartford occupied by seniors who have lived there. I've been knocking on these doors for 40, 50 years. And some of those homes are deteriorating. We can have young people renovating homes. So people, when they pass on and they leave their home, there's generational wealth transferred. We can do well while doing good. Skill up our workforce, fix up our buildings in Hartford, with those who live here benefiting those who live here working in those fields. I'll say it again. Measure me by my results, not by my promises, by my results. Look at what I've done as a senator. Have the results warranted me being considered for the next mayor of Hartford? I'll leave that to you and others. But I think if you feel I've done that job as a senator, I think it says a lot about where I've been and says a lot about where I'm going or will be going if I'm elected as the next mayor of Hartford.
Okay. All right. So we have a conundrum because the clock has expired and our next guest has arrived. Because we still have three people who have probably just as valuable questions. We do have what we refer to here as the after party. It starts at 12 o'clock noon. And so I will extend an invitation to you to come back at noon and entertain questions that people may have. But our time has expired.
Invitation.
Okay, so we look forward to seeing you later on, sir. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, everybody. Appreciate the time today.
All right. That was Senator John Fonfara. Joining us next will be Senator and former Judge Eric Coleman. So we're going to let him in, and we'll welcome him. For those of you that may be watching us live, this is the Greater Hartford African American Alliance's weekly meeting. We meet every week from 10 o'clock until 12 o'clock noon, and we are entertaining the three candidates for the Democratic primary. Joining us now will be former Judge and former Senator Eric Coleman. Mr. Coleman, welcome to the program. He's just joining us, so we'll give him time to get situated and settled and open up his mic and camera.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, sir. Welcome, and we will give you the floor. You have 25 minutes, and I will ask, you can use that time any way you want. There are three people with questions in the queue already, and be mindful of your answers. Sometimes our guests get a little long-winded, and they use up all their time with two questions with 5 remaining. So you use your time any way you want. You will have the floor for 25 minutes. You could start off, please, with an opening statement, and then we'll go directly to questions from our members. Welcome.
Well, hopefully everyone knows that my name is Eric Coleman, and I am very interested in becoming the next mayor of the city of Hartford. And my team and I are working very hard to achieve that objective. We're intending, and I think we have to this point, offered a very issues-oriented campaign, and we'll continue to do so. We are on the ballot for September 12th, so we'll be working hard in order to achieve a victory in that primary. I want to be the mayor of the city of Hartford because I care about Hartford, and I believe I have the public service experience as well as a lived experience, which is very similar to that of many of the residents of the city of Hartford. The public service experience that I referred to, I think hopefully everyone is familiar with. I have served as a state representative. I've served as a state senator, and most recently I served as a Superior Court judge. I retired from the judge's position in November of 2022. But I think that all of the skills and experience that I acquired in serving in those positions are immediately transferable to the duties and responsibilities of a mayor. And I would sort of distinguish myself from the other candidates in as much as I have the lived experience that I've mentioned, but I also having a demonstrated ability to get things done, and particularly in the way of public policy. Most notably, I was the lead person in the effort to repeal the death penalty in the state of Connecticut. I also was the chief sponsor and the author of legislation that addressed the excessive use of force by law enforcement. And that bill was actually a precursor to the bill that was passed recently that had to do with police accountability. There are many other pieces of public policy that I'm proud of that I'll share with you very quickly. Racial profiling. I co-authored the first hate crimes legislation. And there was a bill that I co-authored with Mary Mashinsky that required all municipalities in the state of Connecticut to observe Martin Luther King Day as a state holiday. There are so many things that I've been involved in. Notably, I was the chair of the Judiciary Committee, but to be very candid and honest, it's been 4.5 years since I served in the legislature, and I've probably forgotten about many of the initiatives and accomplishments that I've been involved in as a legislator. But I'm reminded on a daily basis of my contributions to the city of Hartford. When I travel along the streets of the city of Hartford and I see the Artist Collective building, which I had some hand in securing the funding for the construction of that building. Similarly, the Community Health Services building and the renovations to Rawson School. As meaningful as my time in the state legislature and my time on the bench are, it has occurred to me lately that those positions were merely preparation for my service as the mayor of the city of Hartford. To this group, I would say that I'm also interested in being mayor of the city of Hartford because I don't think white men should be running the city of Hartford. We have a white mayor at the present time. We have a white town chair. We have a white Speaker of the House from Hartford. And for my money, the only one worth anything is the Speaker of the House. But the white town chair, the white mayor, I think are very threatened by the changing demographics in the city of Hartford. And you see initiatives like charter changes to bring about the strong mayor's position. By the way, we've never had a Black strong mayor. We've not had a Black mayor in 30 years, and we've never had a Black strong mayor. But you see all of the luxury housing that's being developed, and most certainly there will be some Black and brown people that may be able to afford a unit in those luxury apartment buildings. But for the most part, I think it's fair to say that the people that rent those units will probably be young white people or wealthy white people. And that works politically to the liking of our current town chair. And it sort of balances the politics in Hartford. But for my money, the power and influence that Black folks in Hartford wield is not commensurate with their numbers in the population. And I would venture to say, for as long as white people are calling the shots, we'll continue to have sewers backing up into the homes and the businesses of people in the North End. We'll continue to have substandard schools. We'll continue to see absentee slumlords charging exorbitant rent prices for units in their dilapidated properties. And we'll continue to see Black folks in Hartford not getting what they deserve or what they need. I guess invite the argument for anyone to make that any of the current candidates in this primary would care about the people in Hartford and the Black community in Hartford more than Eric Coleman would care about and take care of. My vision is to rebuild Hartford, and I propose that we do that together. With that, I'll entertain any questions and respond to any questions that any of the members may have.
Okay. The floor is open. We will go in the order of hands that are currently raised. And if you have questions, please feel free to raise your hands. We'll go in the order that they appear until the clock expires. Christopher Duke, you have the floor.
Good morning, Mr. Coleman.
Good morning, Chris.
Good morning. My question, I'm sorry, I just ran upstairs from the basement.
Yeah,
anyway, my question for you today, sir, is what is your understanding concerning the depth and breadth of police misconduct in Hartford, which is a symptom of corruption and poor leadership? And if elected mayor, what effective steps will you take to provide assistance and protection to your constituents regarding this issue?
So as far as my observation and experience has been, there is considerable corruption in the Hartford Police Department. And I'll go back as far as the Aquan Salmon incident, which I think was misconduct on the part of the police. At least one police officer was wrong in shooting the young teenager, but I think there was considerable cover-up with respect to that incident by other police officers and the police administration in general. We've seen a sufficient number of incidents of police misconduct. I can think off the top of my head of a police officer actually kicking a detained handcuffed person who was kneeling in the face. I can think of an incident where a ranking officer ordered his subordinate officers to arrest or harass anyone that was appearing on the streets of downtown Hartford if they weren't wearing a tie or a suit. So what I propose is a reformation of the Hartford Police Department. I think that effort has to start at the top. We need a police chief who's going to lead by example, who's going to uplift the morale of the police department, but also bring about a certain amount of discipline among the officers that will result in respect for the citizenry of the city of Hartford, all the citizenry of the city of Hartford, and to bring about actually fulfillment of the mission of any police department, and that is to protect and serve. I'm proposing an enhancement of community policing, and by community policing, I mean the citizens in the community having some input into the policy making of the police department and the strategies for law enforcement in the city of Hartford. My vision of the Hartford Police Department under a Coleman administration would include foot patrols and considerable interaction between police officers and the residents of the community. I don't believe that the police can do an effective job unless there is some kind of partnership and some kind of trust between the Hartford Police Department and the residents of Hartford. So hiring and considerable attention paid to the temperament of a prospective police officer would be very important. Appointing a chief who has ideas and approaches that are consistent with mine would also be essential. Hope that answers the question, Mr. Dukes. If not, I welcome you to follow up with your question.
It does. Thank you very much. And I'd like to move on to our other folks who have questions for you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bridget Prince, you have the floor.
Oh man.
You have
Can you see? Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
I hear you now. Yes.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, President. Good morning, Judge Coleman. How are you?
Good morning. I'm well. How are you?
I'm blessed and highly favored. Thank you. My question, well, I got two questions, but my first question is, why now? I mean, I know you have a very illustrious, distinguished career, and you could have went and retired, to the islands and been traveling all around the world. But my question is, why now? Why are you running for mayor in 2023? What actually sparked that that movement in you?
Well, a few things. First of all, I sit and I observe what's going on in the city of Hartford because I care about the city of Hartford. And from the sidelines, I too often found myself saying, that shouldn't have been done. This other thing should have been done. And I don't necessarily enjoy the role of Monday morning quarterback. I'd rather get in the game and to initiate things directly. There was a frustration, and I think most legislators, except for probably the Speaker of the House, would probably confess to the frustration that is felt by legislators who most often are creating things, programs, and other initiatives on a statewide basis. But those of us who've represented Hartford, we fight hard. We send money to the city of Hartford. We send programs to the city of Hartford. But once they arrive at the city of Hartford, it's actually the mayor, and in some instances, the city of council that make the decision whether to implement what legislators have worked on and sent to the city. And oftentimes they don't. More often they do, but not in the way that the legislative delegation had hoped or intended them to implement a program or to utilize resources that were sent from the state level. So to answer your question, I served as a judge for about 4.5 years, and I was pretty much absent from the political scene. But I had an incident where it just occurred to me that the current mayor, and I can't blame him because he really doesn't have the kind of connection that I think is necessary to have. But the current mayor, it became obvious to me, didn't really have the respect that was necessary for certain people from Hartford, and saying Black people, and didn't really have the kind of respect that was, I think, necessary for the Black community in Hartford. And how could he? He's from Greenwich. He doesn't have the kind of lived experience that most of the people from the city of Hartford have. So I don't blame him, but at the same time, I don't necessarily have to tolerate his lack of regard and concern and respect for people in Hartford and communities, the Black community specifically in Hartford.
I definitely appreciate. I just have one comment. I appreciate your answer very much. And this is a very important weekend in the city of Hartford. We have Bellevue Square Day, and then we have the anniversary of the March on Washington. And I think it's significant specifically for the North End of Hartford because two of the most prominent, iconic civil rights leaders of our day, Malcolm X and Martin Luther King, left their footprints in the North End of Hartford. They were trailblazers, and many people don't know. And, there's a lack of knowledge, and there's a lack of respect, and there's a lack of appreciation. I heard what you just said about the disenfranchisement of us as Black people, and the fact that no one really is appreciating it or valuing it until now when it's time to come out and get votes. I am in total agreement with what you're saying about the current mayor, Mayor Luke Bronin, and have openly expressed it, so I have no problem with him. And I am definitely of the mindset that if we know that this is what this current mayor is doing or not doing for Black people, why would anybody embrace his endorsement? Because that's just another third term of the current mayor. So that is my question and comment. Thank you very much, Judge Coleman.
You're welcome.
Very good. Shantae Brody, you have the floor.
Good morning. It's good morning still, Judge Coleman. So Shantae Brody here. I sit on the Hartford School Board, but I also sit on the Police Accountability Review Board. My question is definitely centered around policing. I know I wanted to get an education question in, but I had to choose. So on that board, where is supposed to be a 9-person board, I believe we're down to 5. One of the 5, I've never seen him at a meeting ever, so we're dwindling. And I know some of the other boards in the city are feeling the same. So I'm just looking, my question to you is around the commitment to constantly have city representation, appropriate representation on our boards and commissions, as you would have those appointments as mayor. And to constantly be filling those seats and to make sure that they are running efficiently and appropriate. That is a concern, and more so to the representation on those boards and how a mayor can just pick, you know, whom they want. So if you could speak, because you alluded to the what you did in legislature, but please, if you could share with us about the boards and commission appointments.
Yeah, I would be happy to. Let me just make a closing comment on the question that Ms. Prince asked, and I'll do that very quickly. Just to issue a caution, we have concerns about Mayor Bronin, but we're heading down the same road in this particular election. The town committee has anointed a person that has many of the similar characteristics of Mayor Bronin. Comes from a wealthy background, has a very weak connection to Hartford, has only been here for about 7 years. And to respond to you, I think a lot has to take place in partnership with the community. As mayor, before I make any appointments, I would invite the input of members of the community to help assess the conscientiousness and the diligence and the accessibility and accountability of any person that is seeking appointment to any board or commission that the mayor has any authority or decision-making authority to appoint. And those would be the kind of considerations I would make. How committed is the person? What is the person's history of advocacy or community involvement? How do people in the community view this person's level of dedication? And how has that person interacted with members of the community? What is the subject matter expertise that the person brings to the prospective position he or she is to be appointed to or is being considered for appointment to? Those kind of concerns would be very important to me. And, you know, I don't ever envision moving forward with an appointment of anyone without considerable input from the community. What I'm hoping is that the Coleman administration will become well known for its openness, its transparency, its inclusiveness, its diversity, its accessibility, and its accountability.
Thank you.
Okay.
You're very welcome.
Colin Dawkins, you have the floor.
Good morning, Mr. Coleman.
Good morning, Mr. Dawkins. How are you, sir?
I'm all right, so I already talked to you about construction. I know you understand certain things about it already. So I'm just gonna give somebody an opportunity, because I know you're gonna do the right thing for construction. So we'll talk some more, but I'll give somebody an opportunity to ask a question.
All right. As far as construction is concerned, I'm depending on you.
Gotcha.
Okay. Sherry Frazier, you have the floor.
Hello, Mr. Coleman. How are you?
Good morning. How are you?
Fine. Mr. Coleman, 06120, zip code 06120 and 06112 is the reason why why Hartford received enough funding. I'm concerned with and part of that funding, the two parts that I'm concerned with is the policing and the school system. Okay. the community is looking at both areas and is uncomfortable with no changes. It's the same thing, it's the same routine. People get in there, they say XYZ, they're going to do XYZ, and they do absolutely nothing. And then when you bring to their attention things such as the policing right now, the demographics, them firing 2 new Black police officers that just got hired. And when you ask them, okay, so why did you fire the 2 police officers that you recently hired? Oh, they didn't fit in. They were looking at their phone more than talking. How can you fire someone for not interacting with you? The comfort level isn't there. And with the school system not fitting the community, our school system, our police system do not represent the community. What would you do, or what changes would you make? Remember, because 06112 and 06120 is the reason why we got all the funding, but the funding never went to the zip codes to cover both of those areas.
Yeah, so I'm not sure what funding you're referring to.
Okay. Okay.
Generally speaking, I think that you're probably accurate. There are some census tracts in 120 and 112 that would probably generate considerable funding for federal programs, state programs. So to that extent, and I can respond to your question generally, but I don't know if you're referring to some specific type of funding.
I'm all funding. We get state, we get federal, we get local grants. But when you look at how the money is spent and what was done with it, okay, take for example, hiring minority police officers. Okay, yes, we got the money, but yet when they hired the officers were dismissed because they weren't interacting with the officers. Instead, they said they were sitting there dueling on their phones compared to interacting with the officers. And I asked
so let me say this. I think that Cintron versus Vaughn was sunset prematurely. I don't think the hiring goals that were included in that consent decree were ever met. Well, they certainly weren't met, but I'm not even sure whether there was a good faith effort on the part of the Hartford Police Department and the city in order to meet the kind of hiring goals that were included in the consent decree. So I will say this, we've had a white mayor who took really good care of downtown. We've had a Puerto Rican mayor who took really, really good care of Parkville and Park Street. We've had some ceremonial Black mayors. This is not fair. We've had, not mayors, but we've had some officials that for some reason or other think that when Black folks get in office, it's time for them to be fair and even-handed. That's not my objective. I think the north end of the city of Hartford has been neglected for far too many years. I won't feel the least bit ashamed or embarrassed to make investment in the north end of Hartford a priority. As far as hiring is concerned, the statement applies to that too. I think we have considerable progress to make up in the hiring of police officers of color. We need to get away from this occupation mentality, which I don't think that officers who reside in other towns can easily abandon. And the easiest way to solve that is to grow our own police officers right here in Hartford and to hire police officers who reflect the community that is being protected and served or policed. So the same applies with the school system. You know, I believe that we have some really good teachers of all colors, but I think it's important for students who are sitting in a classroom to see the person who's in front of them, instructing them. It's important, and it will help if that person looks like the students who are sitting in the classroom. And so, you know, I've spoken about expanding recruiting efforts and going to historically Black colleges and universities to recruit teachers to work in the Hartford public school system in connection with providing the best possible quality of education for Hartford youngsters. I agree that we do need to expand early education and preschool programs so that when our young people start school, they are ready for school and they can stay on grade level as far as reading and math and other subjects are concerned. You know, some people have talked about curriculum and how that curriculum should also reflect and meet the young people, the students, where they are, so that I think the curriculum needs to reflect some kind of cultural and ethnic sensitivity. And I'm not sure, for example, why we've eliminated cursive from the curriculum, but if the students want driver's education taught, they should have that. If they want African American studies taught, they should have that. They want financial literacy, they should have that. Life skills training, they should have that. So I just think that the curriculum, there is room with the development of the curriculum to accommodate the wants and the needs of the young people that is allegedly serving.
Okay. Our hands and questions have been cleared. So we'll give you an opportunity to make a closing comment and also extend to you an opportunity, if you so choose, to attend what we refer to as our after party, because it was also extended to the first guest that was here. He did not have an opportunity to answer all of the questions because he ran out of time. But I will extend the same to you. It is an off-the-record opportunity to have conversation with the membership in a more conversational, free-flowing mode. So if you would like to, you're more than welcome to join that. It begins at 12 o'clock noon, and you already have the link.
The same link?
Same link.
Okay.
Yes. So with that, you can feel free to give us a brief closing comment, and that will exhaust your time.
So I'll be very brief in my closing comment. And as I mentioned, Hartford has not had a Black mayor in more than 30 years, and Hartford has never had a Black mayor under this strong mayor form of government. I don't think we should miss this opportunity, and somewhat immodestly, I would say that I am probably the person best poised to be elected as the first strong mayor of the city of Hartford. And together, if that occurs, we can set about the business of restoring, reinvigorating, rebuilding Hartford. And I think certainly infrastructure needs to be rebuilt, but also the reputation and the image of Hartford needs to be rebuilt and restored and reinvigorated. And so I'm going to continue to work extremely hard in order to accomplish the objective of becoming the next mayor of this city. And I would be extremely honored and appreciative if I had the support and the encouragement of this organization, the endorsement of this organization, in furtherance of me fulfilling the mission. Thank you for the time. I appreciate the questions and the opportunity to present to you this morning.
I thank you very much. Okay, our guest has been former Senator and former Judge Eric Coleman, who has joined us, and his time has expired. And so we will now move to our next guest. Thank you very much, Senator.
You want me to sign out, I guess, right? To leave?
Yeah, either that or they will put you in the waiting room. But okay, you could sign off and then come back around, 12 o'clock.
I'll just leave and come back at around 12. As Bridget mentioned, there's Bellevue Square Day today, so I intend to participate in that and some other activities. But
okay,
to the extent that I can, I'll rejoin the after party or the after session.
Yeah, it's quite lengthy. You can join in probably up to like 3 o'clock this afternoon. It'll be happening.
Okay, that'd be great. Thanks a lot.
Okay.
Have a good afternoon, everybody.
Bye-bye. Okay, we're going to admit our next guest to the meeting. Want to remind those people who are watching us online that this is the weekly meeting of the Greater Hartford African American Alliance, and we meet every Saturday morning from 10 o'clock until 12 o'clock noon. And this Saturday we have suspended our rules so that we can hear from the 3 people who are running for mayor of Hartford in the upcoming Democratic Party primary. The way the primary works is there is an individual who has been endorsed by the town committee, and if there are challenges to that endorsement, we have people petition their way onto the ballot. We've heard from the 2 individuals who have petitioned their way onto the ballot, John Fonfara, followed by Eric Coleman. We're now going to be joined by the endorsed candidate for mayor for the Democratic Party, and that would be Arunan Arulampalam. Mr. Arunan, welcome to our morning meeting. You have the floor, sir. What we're going to do is we're going to give you the 25 minutes, and you can give us a kind of opening statement, if you will, and then we will entertain questions from the membership. You have the floor.
Thank you, Stan. I appreciate that, and it's great to be with the Alliance. I appreciate you guys giving me the time to do this. My name's Arunan. I live in the Frog Hollow neighborhood in Hartford, and I'm the CEO of the Hartford Land Bank. I'm raising 5 kids in our neighborhood, and I think a lot about neighborhoods like mine, neighborhoods that have been dealing with decades of disinvestment, and the opportunities for generational wealth creation, the opportunities for educational opportunities for jobs, and the ways in which those cycles tend to be cyclical and have persisted for decades with the same leadership and a lack of urgency for the problems that we are facing that make a difference in families and make a difference in neighborhoods like mine. And so my plan as mayor is centered around investment in neighborhoods, in building housing and home ownership that can lead to generational wealth creation. And that's something we've done at the Land Bank, where we take vacant and blighted properties and work to train Hartford residents to invest in those properties, to take on those properties, to have access to capital to redevelop those properties, and to try to build home ownership, both quality housing and home ownership on the back end. I want to rebuild our commercial corridors. I'm out door knocking in Blue Hills right now, and we launched our canvas from Albany and Woodland, and I think that neighborhood, that corner, is so indicative of so many of our commercial corridors in the city that for so many years were thriving and growing small businesses as a backbone to the economy. And now institutions like the Artist Collective that are a gem and that have such great history and such great potential are floundering, sometimes because they're the only one of their kind in a neighborhood, and we haven't built a concerted effort to build a small business infrastructure around them to allow Hartford residents a chance to own and create businesses in the city. And so one of my proposals is to create a capital fund that is only for Hartford residents, that Hartford residents can tap into to start businesses, start small businesses, or build home ownership in formerly redline neighborhoods in our city. I have also talked a lot about quality of life on this campaign trail, and the ways in which trash and mattresses on sidewalks and rodents in our streets and noise complaints have such an impact. Broken sidewalks have such an impact on psychology of our neighborhoods and what we are communicating about the dignity and respect we have for our residents. And I want to be a mayor who is really on top of quality of life issues, and that shows the city that we can do the small things well. Because I think if we want people to believe in what's possible in the city, if we want them to believe that we can do the big things, we've got to do the small things really well. And third, I want to be somebody who is really active in what our future looks like for our children. I've got young children who go to public school in the city, and I care about what happens between the hours of 8:30 and 3:30 in the school system during the school day and our educational system. And I think when you got 5 votes on the Board of Ed as a mayor, you can't wash your hands of what happens day to day in our school system, and you need to be held to account for our educational system. But I also want to create safe spaces for our kids to go to after school, to reopen our neighborhood schools in the way that they were at one point in the city, and create really robust sports and rec programs and music and arts education. And then, in the evenings in our schools, and then all summer long, to allow for kids to have real engagement with adults in each neighborhood, to have a community center where kids can go to after the school day is over, and where their parents know that they're safe, where kids can be kids again, and have a real alternative to our streets. And so I care about the future of the city. I think I've got the experience to be able to run the city. I don't have a long legislative history, but prior to serving at the Land Bank, was deputy commissioner for the Department of Consumer Protection in the Lamont administration, where I oversaw an agency with over 200 employees and over $50 million in revenue. And I think I'm the only person in this race with real executive experience in managing a government organization, dealing with labor unions, managing division directors, working on legislative issues on behalf of the executive branch. And I think I've got a heart for this city. And I would be really honored to serve as your mayor. And I'm looking forward to the questions.
Okay, thank you very much. We have 3 on deck. Be mindful of the length of your answer, and people be mindful of your of the length of your questions. Christopher Duke, you have the floor, sir.
Thank you. Good morning, sir. My question is, what is your understanding concerning the depth and breadth of police misconduct in Hartford, which is a symptom of corruption and poor leadership? And if elected mayor, what effective steps will you take to provide assistance and protection to your constituents regarding this issue?
Thank you for that, Chris. I think the consent decree on Citron v. Voss, allowing that to lapse, was a serious misjudgment, and I think that we've got a lot of work to do when it comes to police accountability and ensuring that that our police department is one that represents our community, and then in which police are held to account for misconduct. And I think that means having a greater resident voice in both the CPRB and the PARB, and also it means having recruitment that that ensures that our police department starts to look and have more Hartford residents within its ranks. And I think that leadership starts at the very top. I think that holding police to account for misconduct is really the measure of last resort. I'd like to have a police chief who has real experience in community-based policing and has experience in a department that has a really good relationship with the community, and that's tied into the community in a way that ensures both accountability and a level of trust within that community.
Okay. Attorney Cynthia Jennings, followed by Shante.
Good morning, Mr. Arunan. Welcome to the Alliance. All right, one of the things that I wanted to know, first of all, it's important when people are elected, who is running them? Who are their closest allies? Where did you get all this money from the Republicans? And you were a Republican lobbyist, I understand. And I'd also like to ask you, in the last forum at Faith Congregational Church, you mentioned the importance of the airport. I know that one of the people that you were working with is totally opposed to the airport. So, how are you going to resolve that issue of the people that support you being against maintaining the airport to train our children for flight instruction and also training our young people to engage in the jobs that pay $200,000 to $250,000 a year, such as aircraft mechanic. I want to know, how are you going to resolve the issues of the people that you stand with? And my last question really is serious. I've been past 78 Nelson Martin Street, and it's my understanding that property was worth $39,000 at the beginning. Now it was flipped, and now it comes to $250,000 is one of the alleged selling points. Correct me if I'm wrong. But $250,000, who in our community is going to be able to buy a piece of property on Martin Street for $250,000? Why is that price so high? How was that? What money was put into? Where the money come from to renovate it? And how are you going to build generational wealth if the people in the community cannot afford the properties that the land bank is putting out there? And please correct any misconceptions that I might have, if there are any. Thank you.
Sure. Yeah, happy to. I'll answer those backwards. The land bank property at 78 Martin Street, the renovations on that happened. The decisions on that happened before I was at the land bank, and the one thing that has changed is it's probably the last property that the land bank will renovate ourselves. Our goal, as I think I stated at the beginning, is to, instead of being a large nonprofit, to ensure that Hartford residents are redeveloping our properties and building wealth off of the redeveloping of those properties before they're sold as home ownership opportunities. It cost about $420,000 to redevelop it. It was a property in pretty bad condition, and we put it on the market for about $199,000. We were estimating about a $220,000 loss on that property. We received a number of offers from folks in the community, and the one of the offers we received from a young family of color who were first-time home buyers was for $250,000. Now, I mean, if you do the economics on that, a mortgage on and you could plug this into kind of a mortgage rate calculator just on Google, based on mortgage rates right now, what they'll be paying in there for their mortgage payments on this property. It's a beautiful new property. A lot of people came and visited and toured it, what they'd be paying on their mortgage would probably be around $1,500 a month, which is actually less than many people are paying right now on Martin Street, on Capon Street, on Garden Street, in rent. And part of the issue is that we have in Hartford is that our economics are really screwed up. They are set up to be really difficult for to folks who don't own and who rent. And so we didn't list it for $250,000. We realized that the market, even in that neighborhood, I think for the reasons that I laid out, was higher than we expected, and made a decision to sell it to a buyer who was kind of within our demographic group that we wanted to reach. But I think there's a misconception about what residents in Hartford can afford and whether they can become homeowners, because we've grown so accustomed to people paying high rents, and so unaccustomed to people making those rents as mortgage payments. And if you can pay your rent every single month in the city of Hartford, you could probably own a home because rents have been so high. And with home ownership, you can build that wealth and hopefully pass it down to your children. And once you lock in a mortgage rate, it doesn't rise past that. And I sadly, we can almost guarantee that rents will continue to rise in the city of Hartford. The Republican thing is just completely false. I have a father-in-law, my wife's father, and his wife, my wife's stepmother, are Republicans, and I think opponents have tried to make a campaign issue out of that. I was never a Republican lobbyist. I was never a Republican. I was when I was working in my 20s at a law firm right out of law school, paying off student loans downtown. For a brief period of time, that law firm lost their lobbyist. They went to work for someone else, and they'd asked me if I'd fill in for a few months at the end of session because I had spent some time working on campaigns and had some relationships there. But I registered for that session and worked for about 3 months as a lobbyist, but that was certainly never my profession or my bailiwick. And it is, I think, I wouldn't characterize myself as a lobbyist. Certainly have never been a Republican. And you can go through my campaign filings, and both the Hartford Courant and Hearst have kind of, myth busted or, fact checked some opponents on who have said that. But it's pretty clear that aside from family members, I don't have Republican contributors on my list of contributions. I raised my money the old-fashioned way. I just kind of went through my phone person by person and had asked every single family member I knew and every single colleague I knew and every single friend I knew if they would contribute to this, because I really believe in this. And I hate fundraising. I think all candidates do. It's the worst part of the job. But I haven't have just done it because it's something that you unfortunately have to do to be competitive. And I don't have the most funds. I certainly don't have the most funds from people in the Capitol. I don't have and funds from slumlords or special interests or very many Republicans outside of my family. But I think I exceeded expectations the same way that I did in the town committee fight, just by organizing and putting work into it and reaching out to people one-on-one. And that will be the kind of mayor I am as well. I will try to get to every person and knock on every door and reach out to individuals one-on-one, because I think that the only way to build political power and political support is by getting to people individually and telling them genuinely who you are and why you want to do something, and trying to get their buy-in and their support. And I will be far more involved in reaching out to residents in Hartford and being active in neighborhoods in Hartford to get that support than anybody who I've reached out to for money on this campaign.
Okay. Let us move to Shantae. You have the floor.
Yep, it's still good morning. So I didn't have a chance to ask this of the first candidate because we ran out of time. Hopefully he'll join our after party. I'll be able to. I did not need to ask this particular question to our second candidate because he's a Black man. To you, because for the first time in my life, I'm afraid in this city. And we all know that there's issues with how our city is policed. So my question is to you, as a Black person, is a feeling that we see, we experience when we interact with police officers, not just Hartford police officers. And I'm not saying every police officer I've interacted with has been negative, but I've seen some things that I know do not happen to white people when they're policed by their own. So my question is to you, as mayor, how are you going to make that connection to know how we feel, our experiences, because you'll hire a police chief, or you'll leave the same one that's there. But what are you going to pull upon to know how we feel in our experiences, to have a police force that is respectful of the residents that they are to serve and not manage, like that they are to serve us? So that's my question.
Yeah, Shantae, I appreciate that question. I mean, I'll start by saying this. I don't know what it's like to be a Black man in America, a Black person in America. But I know what it's like to not get a pass from the police. When I was 16, I had a police officer pull a gun on me. When I was 21 in college and driving in the wrong neighborhood, I ended up in the back of a police car with no charge, with again, a police officer at one point pulling a gun on me. Just 3 weeks ago, I was going to a funeral of someone in a small white town and falling behind somebody else who was going at the same speed and got pulled over by a police officer. And in a line of people, he pulled me out. And it's not a feeling that I am completely new to. And I mean, those are three of probably about a dozen examples I could give if we had time. But people with faces that look like this don't get passes either. But I also will say that I don't know what it's like to be a Black man or a Black person in America. And I think it's really important whenever decisions like that are being made to have those voices in the room. And so I can tell you, I'm not going to name names, but there are people who I have very specifically in mind, both within my inner staff and within when we look at kind of the system of oversight and leadership in public safety, who are specifically Black people and who have those lived experiences and can speak to that in real time. And that's really important to me.
Okay. We have three questions. We have three people who have questions. We're gonna end with these three. Please make your question a question and not a commentary, so that we can end on time and under the so that our candidate does not run out of time. Sherry, you have the floor.
Hello, Arunan. My question is this: how and why did you choose to run for the city of Hartford as mayor? How and why? What possessed you? How and why? What was your sole purpose of running for mayor for the city of Hartford? What changes did you see that needed to be made?
That's a really good question. Thank you, Sherry. I look at my street where I have the only single family home in a neighborhood with a 7% home ownership rate. And, like so many neighborhoods across the city of Hartford, it is clear that the economic system that exists is one that is set up to screw the residents who live within it, and will never allow for the creation of opportunity and generational wealth, and also will never allow for any kind of control over what happens within the city. If other people own your land, your physical land, then they can raise rents and move you out. They can never make investments in your education, in your kids' education system. And I think in cities like Hartford that have seen what has happened in so many other places across America, and the Brooklyns and Harlems and Oaklands, and there are a million examples across America. It's really clear what is coming, and if we don't make the investments now to change the economics of cities like Hartford, then so many families who have lived here and bled here and sweated here and toiled here for generations are just going to get pushed out, and we're going to change what buildings look like and what communities look like, but we're not going to in any way fundamentally improve the lives of people who live in the city. And I thought about the Hartford that my kids are going to grow up in. I thought about the Hartford that so many of my neighbors' kids are going to grow up in, and I really hope that Hartford charts a different path. I really want Hartford to chart a different path, but it takes really aggressive and specific intervention, I think, and a kind of investment in changing the economic model. And I know that that's not a sexy campaign point, and I know it doesn't, go on a flyer well, and but I think we've got to be really serious about what the economics look like for Hartford residents, and whether we are just plugging holes for today and for the problems that are right in front of us, or whether we're changing fundamentally what the economics look like, so that in 15 and 20 years, we aren't having the same conversations, and our kids aren't having the same conversations, and grandkids, and that we really create a vision for a different vision for what's possible in the city.
Okay. In being fair, everyone had 25 minutes. Our time, it has expired.
Excuse me, Mr. President. He never answered my last two questions. About the airport and about who are his supporters that are against the airport, and how is he gonna resolve that?
Okay, so all candidates had 25 minutes to answer whatever questions and take how much time they had. Our first candidate used the first 20 minutes to answer one question. And so what we still, the time allotted is the time allotted. Having said that, we have given an opportunity for the candidates to return if they so choose after we go into our after meeting where they all the questions are off the record in terms of our recording and broadcast. So, Mr. Arunan, we extend the same question to the same opportunity to you to do so. We'll give you a short opportunity to make a closing statement, and then we will go on to
Mr. President, can I just say that how can we have candidates come, not answer the question, and then get to go?
I'll tell you what, Cynthia, I will forego my closing statement. I'll answer your question instead.
Thank you.
And there was a number of questions, and I think I lost sight as I was answering them. Look, on the airport, I don't know who specifically you're referring to, although I can guess, and I think that nobody who was a part of my campaign when I started this campaign and through the first, probably 6 months of this campaign, what really felt strongly one way or another about the airport. Yes, I think the airport has a potential to grow some jobs. I think there's no way that the 10 to 20 jobs that could be created by that it could be the backbone of the kind of response on jobs that we need in the city of Hartford to deal with the level of unemployment that we have. And so I think I see benefits to keeping the airport open. I think that it in a city with 19 square miles, half of which is untaxable, you can't rule out
Okay.
there's a better use for any land.
Oh, you're waiting.
But am I at time?
No.
So.
But go ahead.
Okay, so.
Be respectful.
So I think you've answered the question. I don't know if satisfactory to the person who posed the question, but we can have that discussion if you want to come back or stay after we end. We can have that discussion ad nauseum. But the 25, it would be unfair to the other candidates I'm trying to be as fair as I can to give everybody 25 minutes. So we will, your time unfortunately has expired. And so we thank you very much for coming and sharing, taking time out of your schedule. I know you're very busy, as are all the candidates, to share your vision and to talk to our members and to ask the questions of those who are able to pose them. And we extend the invitation to you. You're welcome. We extend the invitation to you to join us in the after party. That's where we have an ongoing conversation. They are generally very lengthy, so if you want to come back at any point between now and probably 5 o'clock this afternoon, at the minimum, someone will be here. You can use the exact same link that you used to join this program, and you can answer all kinds of questions and exchange, and it'll be a little bit more free-flowing and more, how shall we say, unhindered conversation by a moderator. So you can come and take part in that. The other candidates may be present as well. Maybe we'll have a real good debate. It's off the record though. It's not going to be recorded or shared with the public. So with that, thank you very much, Mr. Arunan Arulampalam, who is the candidate who has been endorsed by the Democratic Town Committee. All right. So with that, we will also thank our audience for joining us and ask them that to know that the African American Alliance is here, and if you would like to join us at any time, you can feel free to do so. We're here every Saturday morning from 10 until 12 o'clock noon, and we encourage you to join us. Thank you for joining us.